February 4th, 1880. The roads around Lucian, Ontario were buried beneath snow. The farms, they sat silent beneath a moonlit sky. Most families, they'd already gone to bed. Candles, they had burned low. Stoves, they crackled softly. And in one farmhouse on the edge of town, 5 members of the Donnelly family, they were just settling in for the night. But they had no idea that a group of men was already moving toward their house. Some of these men, they carried clubs. Some of them, they carried guns. Some of them, they carried lanterns. The men knew exactly where they were going. They knew exactly who they wanted. Before sunrise, the Donnelly home would be reduced to ashes. 5 people, they'd be dead. An entire town be accused. More than a century later, people still argue over the same question. Were the Black Donnellys ruthless criminals or victims of one of the greatest acts of mob justice in North American history? To answer that question, though, we have to go back long before the fire, back before the murders, back before the hatred. We have to go all the way back to Ireland. What do you think of that? Got you on the edge of your seat, Meg.
Mm-hmm.
What are you thinking?
Sounds pretty intense.
Kind of like camping.
Mm-hmm.
The voice you're hearing, it's me, it's Matt, it's Beardlaw, and just joining me as always is the beautiful Dun Queen, Meg.
Hi.
It's interesting, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ireland, somewhere you want to go, I want to go. I don't think I wanted to go there in the 1800s, though. Definitely not the 1900s. I'd be all right with going probably right now.
Yeah.
Although flying across the big old ocean, I don't know if I overly trust it. It'd probably be all right.
I think it'd be fine.
They do it every day.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, I hope everybody checks out all the friends and the links in the descriptions and all that good stuff. Like this, review this. We haven't had a review on Spotify and Apple in a long time. You'd really make our week, wouldn't it, Meg?
Mm-hmm.
So we just left a little review ski. Tell us what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong. Except they'll be like, oh, you guys talk too much. How dare that married couple talk so much? All right, well, hopefully you found us on the new YouTube channel. The old one, the new one, it's back. Let's jump right into this. You ready?
Ready.
All right. So before they became legends, the Donnellys, they were immigrants, like millions of others during the 19th century. What do you think Donnelly, the head of the household, the dude, what do you think his first name was? Any guesses? Any guesses at all?
Stew.
You took that long to guess Stu? Unreal. James. It was James Donnelly. He was born in Ireland during a period of hardship and uncertainty. Life was difficult. Land was pretty scarce. Opportunities, they were limited. And like countless Irish families, he dreamed of something better. So in the 1840s, Canada offered that possibility. Canada has land. Canada had work. Canada was a fresh start, at least in theory. But many Irish immigrants quickly discovered that, well, starting over wasn't easy. It wasn't easy at all, especially in rural settlements. Because communities then, just like they kind of are now, maybe probably a lot more, they were tight-knit. I think they were more tight-knit back in the day with immigrations coming over and now. Because people are kind of crazy now.
I'm going to say more now.
Fair. And back then, land disputes were common. I feel like land disputes aren't as common these days. It's the last time you heard a couple of people these days argue over who owns what land.
Been a while.
I ever heard it. Maybe your fence is over a little bit too far, but...
Who knows with the Amish, though?
Yeah, they don't really argue. They just take your stuff. And don't pay all the taxes. Anyways, old rivalries, they started to form pretty quickly at this time. And one disagreement could actually divide neighbors for generations. So when old James Donnelly and his wife, what's his wife's name?
Rebecca.
Close. Johanna. You had, right? Rebecca, Johanna. When they arrived in what world would become, pretty sure it's the Lucian township. Isn't that how you say it? Lucan? Lucian?
I think so.
Wouldn't be Lucan.
No, Lucian sounds right.
Yeah, we're going to go with it. So they're in the Lucian Township, which is in Ontario, Canada, pretty sure. They started to enter a world where every single acre mattered. And almost immediately, though, there was trouble. Trouble seemed to find them. The luck of the Irish. What do you think? What kind of trouble you think found them, Meg? No guesses.
Pitchforks.
Just think they have pitchfork problem? Like there was too many pitchforks at their farm? There wasn't enough pitchforks?
I thought you meant like what was coming at them.
No, we already told you there was guns and all that. I mean, there has to be a pitchfork problem. Money problem? Oh, that's a good guess. Pitchfork problem.
I think meant like what was coming after them.
Got 99 problems and a pitchfork ain't one.
It's today.
People don't even know. People don't even own pitchfork. Can you even go anywhere and buy a pitchfork?
Yeah.
Where?
Tractor Supply.
You just going to buy a pitchfork?
Yeah. There's still farms.
Yeah, but how many actually are using pitchforks?
We use one. Well, not me and you, but like my parents. Anyone who has hay that needs to be sifted through.
Small-time hobby farmers, not big old farmers, aren't doing it by a pitchfork anymore. They got tractors and
you still have to use them inside.
I don't think so. Any farmers out there, chime in. Do you still use a pitchfork? When's the last time you used a pitchfork? When's the last time you bought a pitchfork? How much do you think a pitchfork cost?
$42.72.
How come you're so quick with that guess? I ask you a name and it's like... I
had to like...
You had to what?
Picture what they looked like. And...
Oh, what's he look like? You were picturing it.
Scraggly white hair that sticks over his ears.
You think so?
Yeah.
Think an old white man's moving all that way? I don't think so. He's got to be younger.
Yeah, I'm feeling old.
Well, aren't we all feeling old? According to, if you go to the mart that is full of walls, you can get a 5-prong heavy-duty garden pitchfork for $38.46. If you go to not the building that's not Highs, but it's the other one, you get a Craftsman 48-liter wooden handle pitchfork for $59.98. But if you go to Tractor Supply, like you mentioned, $74.99. That's for a Groundwork Pro pitchfork. Much nicer pitchfork than the other ones. So there you go. If anybody was wondering, use code BEARDLAWS at Tractor Supply. Save yourself some money on a pitchfork. All right. This is where the story starts feeling less like history and more like a powder keg. Who uses that reference anymore?
Nobody.
Do farmers use powder kegs still, too?
I don't know. I'm not a farmer.
Oh, now you're not a farmer. Got pretty excited about a pitchfork. Start talking about powder kegs, you're out. All right, well, let's talk about one of the earliest disputes involving James Donnelly. It centered around, was it money? No, it was land. Specifically, a road. The issue sounds small today. Nobody argues over a road today because they're owned by the county, the state, by somebody else, right? But a road crossing property, well, in frontier farming communities, roads, they meant everything. They determined access, they determined trade, they determined travel, livelihood. Neighbors fought bitterly over them. And James Donnelly found himself at the center of one such conflict. What happened next would shape the rest of his life because one day, the disagreement turned pretty violent. Violent enough that a man named
Rufus.
Patrick Farrell, which is weird because I know a guy named Pat Farrell now. Well, that person ended up dead. Thankfully, the one I know is not. James Donnelly, he was convicted of that murder. He actually served prison time. And then when he returned home, everything changed because the town would never forget. And many, well, they would never forget. I mean, imagine you just moved to a new country. You're trying to build a life. You get into a huge land dispute and then spending years being known as the guy who killed someone over our road. It's a tough break, huh, Meg?
Mm-hmm.
That's unfortunately what happened to James Donnelly. And, well, that town, Lucian, they never let him forget it. That's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's kind of weird because now you're hearing of immigrants and murder in certain divisions or companies that are, being blamed and this and that, and the whole world's pointing fingers. Back then, it sounded pretty crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're getting into a heated political style thing over something like that, just remember, it was crazier back then. So then, when James returned from prison, do you think he just disappeared?
Nope.
Nah, he didn't disappear. He stayed. He worked. He raised a family, built a farm, had kids. Lots of kids. And those kids, they grew up with something already attached to their name. A reputation. Whether it was fair or unfair, the Donnelly name became synonymous with trouble. And just like every small town, stories, they started to spread. But the rumors, they spread even faster, don't they, in a small town?
Sure do.
All of a sudden, missing horses? Must have been the Donnellys. Oh no, that barn, it burned overnight. Know who did it?
The Donnellys.
It was probably the Donnellys. There was a fight at the tavern last night. Know who we should probably check on?
Those Donnelly boys.
The old Donnelly boys. So by the 1860s and the 1870s, their name had become almost mythical. But the problem is, history then becomes a little blurry because some of the accusations, they were definitely real. But a lot of them, they weren't. And separating fact from folklore is almost impossible, especially in those times, right? And once a community decides who the villain truly is, every story, it starts to sound a little believable, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, think about it now. Each small town has a name that just has kind of been muddied up for generations. Maybe there's proper reasons, or maybe. I mean, if you think of your small town, you can think of a couple of names that are associated with some not so good stuff, I'd imagine, right?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe some of it's merit. Maybe some of it's just a little bit like, this one guy did this one thing. And sometimes you just have generational, let's go with knuckleheads.
Okay.
Right? The old
Yep.
plant corn, get corn.
Yep.
Grandpa was a knucklehead, raised himself a knucklehead. Old kid made a knucklehead who then just made a knucklehead. 4 generations of knuckleheads.
Mm-hmm.
Should have used a pitchfork a little more in their life. Just like Meg's farm. So you thought the story was already complicated, right? Let's crank it up a notch. Because this is where it really gets complicated. And it's almost where modern audiences often struggle. Yes, the Donnellys, they weren't saints. There is evidence connecting family members to fights, which, it's 1880. The whiskey was a little more. You take a little sip, it puts hair on your chest. You're going to act a little squirrely. Property disputes? Yeah, they happen. Threats? They were around. Maybe there was some theft. There was no ring cams, door cams. Things happen. But there's also evidence that they became convenient scapegoats. Let's go with that.
Okay.
Because historians still debate exactly how much criminal activity was actually the Donnellys. This is what we do know. Are you ready? They gained enemies, like a lot of enemies. Those enemies, they weren't just individuals. Because back then, when you messed with one, you messed with the entire family, huh?
Right. They were usually large families.
They were pretty big families, and a lot of them families, they also had businesses. So they made some enemies with some businesses, some big old families. But not only that, they made enemies now with some community leaders. Apparently, allegedly, they made enemies with religious figures. In the 1800s, you didn't have religion on your side. I feel like you were a scapegoat.
Mm-hmm.
By the late 1870s, the situation was reaching a breaking point because hatred had evolved into something, well, much more dangerous. Organization.
Ooh.
There started to be whispers around town of a little committee forming, and then there was some meetings that were happening quietly behind closed doors, away from curious eyes. The group would eventually become known as the Vigilance Committee. I mean, pretty obvious name, right?
Right.
Guess what its purpose was? It was a simple purpose. What do you think the Vigilance Committee What do you think their purpose was, Meg? It was simple.
To run the Donnellys out.
Kinda. Protect the community. That's all they were there to do was protect. Like the first maybe wave of neighborhood watch program, right? Well, at least that's what supporters claim that they were there to do. But critics had a little different word for them. Vigilantes. Because increasingly, the committee's attention, it focused on one family like you thought. Who?
The Donnellys.
The Donnellys. And once that happened, well, the countdown had begun. Because in the winter of 1880, the Donnellys, they went to bed, believing that they would wake up the next morning. Some of their neighbors knew otherwise, because hidden in the darkness, plans had already been made. Before dawn, well, old Lucian's most infamous night would begin. The Donnellys had spent decades making enemies. Some of those enemies, they were earned. But I think others might have been just imagined. But by the winter of 1880, it no longer mattered, because in Lucian Township, the Donnelly name had become something larger than family. And a family, it became a symbol, a warning, a rumor, a target. For years, neighbors whispered about, maybe somebody should do something about the old Donnellys. Then one night, guess what? Somebody did something about the Donnellys.
Oh boy.
Oh boy. Want to talk about it?
Yeah.
Now let's paint the scene a little bit, because it's February 4th, 1880 up in Canada. I wonder where Lucian, Canada is. What do you think? Is it east? Is it west? Is it north? Is it south? What's your guess?
I'm going to say northeast. No, northwest.
So Lucian, I'm bringing it up on the map here. Lucian is near London, near Niagara Falls, right across from Lake Erie, Cleveland. So not terribly far from us. Fairly close to old Buffalo, Cleveland, Detroit-ish on the map.
I was wrong.
You were
Wrong.
close. So, yeah, over there. Lucian, now we know where it is. So he paints an even more picture. It gets pretty cold, and the cold is merciless. I mean, snow covered the fields surrounding the entire area. The roads on this particular night, they were pretty quiet. It was the kind of quiet that only exists in a farming country after midnight. There was no automobiles. There was no street lights. There was no distant highway noise. Nobody was staying up late to watch a hockey game. It was just darkness. The occasional gust of wind, and the sound of boots moving through the snow. Somewhere after midnight, there was a group of men who began to gather. No church bell announced them. There was no public meeting that called them together. Yet somehow, they all knew where to go. And why? Well, the target was obvious. It was the Donnelly farmhouse, Meg. Home to do you remember their names? You don't remember their names?
I got my names stuck in my head. Stu and Rekka.
It's James and Joanna. They had a son, Tom. They had a niece, Bridget. They had another resident that was there, John Boyden. I don't really know how that fits in, but inside the home, everybody was taking a little snooze. Well, or trying to be. Outside, the vigilantes, they were approaching. I mean, imagine lying in bed, thinking tomorrow's just going to be another miserable winter day. Well, a mob of people are walking towards your house. They knew exactly who they're looking for. Oh boy. It's getting intense, like you said, right?
Old James and Joanna.
Old Stu and Rebecca and John Boyden.
The cousin.
Another resident. So the men, they arrive. And they didn't arrive screaming. They did not just immediately attack. Nah. They had a plan, Meg. Any idea what this plan was or no?
They circled the house.
It's the plan?
Quietly.
Okay. With pitchforks?
Mm-hmm. And torches.
Okay. Well, before we get there, let's talk about one of these believed leaders to be Constable John Carroll, a member of the local Vigilance Committee. His presence, it mattered, Meg, because he represented authority. He represented trust. He represented legitimacy. So when the knock came at the door, it wasn't just a stranger demanding to come on in. It was someone that the family recognized. Someone claiming that they were there on official business. Inside the farmhouse, movement began. People woke. Questions were asked. The house stirred from sleep. Then the door opened, and everything changed. Now, the exact sequence of what happens next, it remains pretty disputed to all the history nerds. But what happened next, it happened fast. That's one thing they do agree on, like very fast, like far too fast for anybody inside to react. Because you know what they did? They surged into the house. Then they busted out their weapons. There started to be some yelling, and then pure chaos erupted. Within moments, the violence exploded. That's a tough scene to picture. And I know you just watched a scary movie today, so what do you think's scarier? A mob of men approaching, ready to take out the Donnellys? Or the movie you watched?
They're probably about equal playing field.
You gonna have nightmares tonight?
No. How many kids are in the family? Does it say?
They had a lot of children, but at the time, it was just Tom, a niece, Bridget, and the other dude, Tom. I mean, we could let's ask my phone. So in the 1880s, Lucian, Ontario, the Donnelly family with not a great reputation. How many kids did Jonathan? Jonathan Donnelly and Johanna Donnelly. Almost made me say Stu. All right, they had 8 children. They had James Jr., William, John, Patrick, Michael, Robert, Thomas, and Jane. And the girl last. Imagine having 7 brothers and you're the last girl. Imagine her trying to get a date. Jeez. Yeah.
Okay.
So obviously, in that, they lost obviously some people, but not the entire family. Because you got to think, the first one was born in 41. So by the time February 4th, 1880, a lot of these kids had already probably been out on their own. Because one was born 41, 45, 47, 49, 50, 53, 54, 57.
Okay.
So, okay. Ready?
Mhm.
Let's talk about this. This is where it gets pretty intense. Because the attack was brutal. Not because of, obviously, how many people passed away, but because how personal it was. This wasn't a distant shooting. This wasn't an accident. The victims, they were attacked face to face inside their own home. James, he was beaten. Then they shot him. The wife, Johanna, she was attacked. Their son, attacked. Bridget, John Boyden, they just attacked all of them, one by one by one. They just went right at them all. But the attackers, they moved through the house with terrifying efficiency. There was years of resentment, years of rumors, and years of anger that just came out in one terrible, brutal attack, all condensed into a few horrific minutes. The people inside, they never stood a chance, because what began as a supposed arrest became an execution. And then came the fire, Meg, because the killers, they weren't finished. After the violence ended, they decided to burn the house down. And flames, they spread through the structure. Got to imagine all Canadian, wood, not a lot to them, right? Not like they had firewall and just, and it was drier wood, inside when you're in there and the wood heat and everything. Your house gets dry. The walls were dry and then it ignited pretty quickly. Then heat swallowed room after room. The winter sky above, the entire town suddenly had a little orange glow to it. From a distance, it probably looked like a beacon or a warning, maybe. And the fire consumed almost everything. Bodies, evidence, memories, possessions, an entire family's history was gone. By sunrise, very little remained. But one thing survived, Meg. Any guesses?
Mm-mm.
I thought you were going to say a pitchfork. No, a witness.
Oh.
And that witness would ensure that the story never disappeared. Because one of the most remarkable parts of the Donnelly story is that somebody escaped. Guess who escaped, Meg?
The cousin.
No.
Oh.
Young William Donnelly. He was often called Will. He was at another Donnelly property that night. The killers had another destination after leaving the farmhouse. It was the home of James and Johanna's son, William. Known locally as Will Donnelly, the mob wasn't satisfied with 5 victims. They wanted the Donnelly family erased completely. But when they reached the second property, they expected another easy attack, but instead things went a little differently because Will realized that danger was coming. Again, the accounts differ on exactly how the events unfolded, but what matters is this: he survived. And because he survived, the Donnelly name survived, because without Will, the story may have ended that night, but instead it became legend. Because as dawn broke over the Lucian township, the truth started to spread pretty quickly. Everybody knew, and that's what makes this story so unusual. This wasn't a secret crime. This wasn't a mystery that was hidden from the community. Nah, people knew who the victims were. People knew a mob had came over and attacked them all. People knew members of the Vigilance Committee were the ones involved. And yet something strange happened. Nobody seemed shocked. Horrified a little bit, yeah. Surprised? Not a single one. Because for years, people had been talking about the Donnelly problem. Now, many people believed the problem was solved. And that's an uncomfortable reality historians kind of still wrestle with today, because the community reaction raises a pretty disturbing question. How many people secretly approved? I mean, that's crazy to think about for us. I bet you stuff like this happened in small towns throughout the world at this time.
Right.
I mean, there's no way a secret group gets together and can just have this happen in a world today, thankfully, right?
Mm-hmm.
But maybe the most chilling part of the Donnelly story isn't the murders. It's that many people in town seem to think that the murders made sense. But eventually, authorities did launch an investigation. Arrests followed. Several men were charged. On paper, it looked like justice was finally catching up. But trials, you know what they require? Witnesses. And witnesses, you know what they require? Cooperation. Lucian had a problem. Nobody wanted to talk. Or perhaps more accurately, nobody wanted to talk publicly. Because, well, you wouldn't want to be next, right?
Nope.
And rumors, they were everywhere. Names, they were circulating pretty constantly. Private conversations happened behind doors. Yet when it was time to testify, all of a sudden everybody's memories got a little fuzzy. Their details, Meg, became a little uncertain. Witnesses, they started to contradict themselves. Evidence just disappeared. The prosecution found itself battling not just the accused, they were battling an entire culture of silence. So then the trials, they became some of the most paid attention to legal proceedings in Canadian history, because newspapers covered every development. People packed courtrooms. Everybody wanted answers. But answers never arrived, because one by one, cases fell apart. Jurors, they struggled. Witness testimony weakened. Reasonable doubt grew. Eventually, acquittals followed. No one was convicted for the murders. Nobody paid for the attack. Officially, one of the most infamous massacres in Canadian history ended without justice.
Even with a witness.
Even with just the witness. Unofficially, many people believed they knew exactly who had done it, but nobody could prove it. Or, well, wouldn't prove it. This is where the story leaves the courtroom and enters folklore, because after the trials ended, the Donnellys stopped being merely a family. They became mythology. I mean, books appeared, articles followed, tour guides told stories, visitors came looking for answers, and every generation added something a little bit new. Some storytellers transformed the Donnellys into ruthless criminals. Others transformed them into just innocent old martyrers. But reality became tangled with legend. The truth became harder to find, and perhaps that's inevitable because stories like this, they rarely remain frozen in time. They evolve, they grow, they become reflections of people telling them, right? But you're probably thinking, like, who were they really? Were they innocent? What do you think? Like, purely innocent?
No.
Nah. I mean, there's nothing in history that says that they were purely innocent. Were they violent at times? Yeah. Were they involved in conflicts? Absolutely. But does any of that justify what happened February 4th, 1880?
No.
And I mean, that's where the opinions diverge. Me and you are like, nah. Because even if every rumor was true, even if every accusation was accurate, what happened the night? It wasn't law. It wasn't justice. It was revenge. And revenge has a way of creating its own little monsters, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Today, thankfully, Lucian, Ontario, it's pretty quiet. There's still farms. There's still the same roads, probably just named a little different. The snow, it still falls during those long Canadian winters that we also get. And if you drive through town, you don't see a battlefield. You won't see a burned farmhouse. You won't see the fear that once gripped this community. But the story remains, hidden beneath everyday life, just waiting for somebody to ask about it, waiting for someone to remember. More than 140 years later, people still argue over who the Donnellys were. Outlaws, victims, troublemakers, martyrs. Perhaps they were a little of all four. But one fact remains impossible to ignore. On a cold February night in 1880, a group of men decided that they had the right to become judge, jury, and executioner. And an entire town spent the next century arguing about whether they were wrong. Because sometimes the darkest mystery isn't who committed the crime. Nah, sometimes it's how many people were willing to look the other way. And in Lucian, that question still lingers in the winter air, long after the fire went out.
Huh.
That's crazy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Glad we don't have to worry about that today. So be good people. Don't be a Donnelly. And if you are somebody with a last name Donnelly, maybe these were your relatives. Tell us how you feel about it, because we think it's crazy. It's absurd. Yeah, you might not have been great, but a group just can't come in and do that. But they did. Nobody paid for it. That's all we got. We'll be back next year. Another small town, another big story, huh, Meg?
Yep.
All right. Take care, everybody. That's all we got. We'll be back next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.